without further ado, let me introduce our speaker. The first thing I need to tell you is that I listen to the people who I respect. And three of the people I respect are Douglas Rushkoff, Eric Davis, and David Pescovitz. And when I asked each of them who should be our next guest speaker, there was a unanimous agreement that it should be Mr. Mark Pesce. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a little bit about Mark Pesce from Wikipedia, which on our conversation from the airport we recognize is one of the most successful social media experiments of all time. If you think about a social media experiment that provided something of value for all of us and that was produced collectively, more or less, it's great. And this is what Wikipedia says. It's fairly boilerplate, right? Because it's Wikipedia. Mark D. Pesce is an American-Australian author, researcher, engineer, futurist, and teacher. Now, when I was preparing this dinner tonight, one of the things I recognized is that even though there's all this technology, it's still really hard to work with. Like to make these QR codes that you see around here that you can use to sign into our mailing list or to talk to Dr. Edith Ubuntu Chen. Those took multiple people, multiple messages today to make happen. And it reminds us that we're sitting in a liminal space, to work on what Cole's ideas, between a time when all of these parties were coordinated and created and organized by hand. And the invitations were handwritten. And the event would be very personalized based on that kind of individual craftsmanship. And we are moving towards a world in which all of our interactions and structures and understanding of the world may be mediated by not only screens, but by convenience. And so the danger is that we become mere automatons reading the paragraph in front of us, whereas 100 years ago, this would have been an opportunity to take a moment to make an individualistic, specific toast based on the circumstances of where we are. So the answer, of course, is that in this encroaching sameness, we have to raise our freak flags and we have to fly them. It's the only hope that we have to stay differentiated from what is coming. And what is coming is everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing based on what their phone is telling them. So, some interesting food for thought. And here's some more. Our speaker tonight, the one and only, a fantastic travel companion in the car from SFO all the way up here. In traffic, we didn't even get bored. I didn't get bored, he might have. Mark Pesce. Woo! The mic is in that, just be strong.
Thank you, David, and good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chris, and thank you all for coming along. I have two bowls here, which were for a talk that I prepared, which I have abandoned. But I will tell you a little bit about the talk, because the talk is revealed on my name tag. I wrote Palmer Eldritch on my name tag, because why not? So, the two bowls I have here contain candy, candy is dandy, and choosy, choosy's a doozy. Pick the one you want. I'm going to pass the bowls around. Only pick one. It would be very bad to take both of these simultaneously. You get the candy. You get the choosy. Now, take it and each lie back, enjoy the ride, all of that. The talk that I was going to do was going to be a nice little riff on candy, bringing you back to all of the things that are very human. It places you back in yourself. It allows you to fuse with other people. Choosy gives you a transcendent experience. And I guess the question there was, do we really want that? And I was going to do this. And on Wednesday, I wrote the first 2/3 of that talk and said, it's a lovely day in San Diego. I'm going to go have a swim. So got in the car, drove over to the pool, had a lovely swim, went to visit my uncle, got back. Around the time that I got back, my life changed. Something happened. The only thing that I can describe it as is a bifurcation in reality. Now, there was no pink beam, there was no divine invasion, but all of a sudden I became intensely aware that in fact, along with this world that I can see right here, exactly right beside me, was another universe which was internally self-consistent, in which I had a history and a path, and I was kind of liminally flipping between the two of them in something like real time. I had not asked for this. I did not particularly want this, but that's where I was on Wednesday afternoon. So, as I'm starting to freak out, and we'll trace the arc of that, I decide I'm going to have a list of what could possibly be going on with me right now. So the top of the list is migraine, because I do get migraines, but I've had plenty of sleep, hadn't had any coffee or alcohol in the last couple of days, shouldn't be getting a migraine, but I do know that there are classes of migraines that are disassociative. I don't get those, but it's like, okay, that's a possibility. It's like, all right, maybe, maybe not. Am I having a stroke? Funny story about that, when I started getting the migraines, saw a neurologist who sent me off to get an MRI, and then toured my brain with me. And he said, you see those little things there? They're little things, they look like little grains of rice. He's like, those are the dead bits. I was like, I've had strokes. He's like, oh, we don't call them that. We expect to see about one of them for every decade you've been alive. So I'm now working on number 7. I was like, okay. Is it a stroke? Probably not a stroke. Is it what we would slightly call the senior moment? In other words, is it the first attack of senile dementia? Because we know that people deep in dementia imagine themselves to be places they're not, that they're practicing that flipping because of what's going on. And this is when I start to freak out a little bit, but what I really now come to is, well, 30 years ago, when I was living in San Francisco, over about the course of a month, one of my roommates descended into a psychotic break. And it was, from the outside, completely terrifying. She just lost it, and she ended up in Langley Porter on a lot of drugs for quite a period of time. And I was traumatized. We were all traumatized by this, but I talked to my psychiatrist years later, and they reassured me and said, Mark, actually the interesting thing about it is from the inside, a psychotic break is not actually as nasty as it looks from the outside. For them, it's mostly experienced as a dreamlike state. And that's where I landed. I'm like, oh, so I'm having a psychotic break. Yay. And at this point, I basically am fully freaked out. Now, the good thing is that this experience of having this bifurcated world where I'm kind of having two timelines that somehow have popped up and have decided they needed to be simultaneous fades. And it fades in probably about a half an hour. But of course, I'm left deeply rattled. I don't know what is going on with my brain, and I don't know what is happening. And when you freak out, all of your normal resources that would help you rally in a moment like this go elsewhere. So I'm just sort of naked and afraid, wondering what's going on with my brain. I was like, all right, time in the afternoon to have a little bit of a nap. Had a little bit of a nap, that's fine. Maybe if I meditate a little bit, because I do breath meditation in the afternoon, maybe that'll help. Managed to get about 20 minutes of that in. Did it help? It didn't hurt. It didn't make things worse. Finished the meditation, and all of a sudden I realized that the thing that I actually truly need to do is I need to go out, staying at my cousin's place, and I need to make this really delicious dinner for my cousin and I. And so we go into the kitchen, and I show my cousin how to make my really famous, in Australia, refried bean dish. She carefully takes notes, and we have this amazing dinner that I cook up, and we sit, and we eat it, and we clean up, and by the time we've cleaned up, I'm feeling normal again. Because there's something about the daily practice of reality that allows us to get away from any of the scary stuff in reality. But I still took the first Xanax that I'd taken in 3 years to help me settle down that night, because I decided, let's err on the side of clubbing ourselves. And that actually did do a job. And I woke up the next morning and went, okay, I think that's behind me now. But it raises now not the neurological question, but the epistemological question, which is, what happens when everything that you see about the world suddenly is no longer true? Because that was the thing that's utterly frightening. What happens when reality isn't? Now, I have to tell you something. That's not a new idea to me. For about the last year, I've been sitting doing meditation every morning. What I do in that meditation, at least in the first part of that, is I actually disassemble my view of the world. I take it and I just dismantle it. And I do it step by step. And the first thing I start with is my pomp. Because, you know, really good, really great person, all this wonderful stuff. Need to get rid of that right away. And then, the next thing I get rid of is my pretense. If you talk to any of my friends, you'll understand that maybe I have a lot of pretense. Thank you. Thank you very much. And so I spend a fair bit of time dealing with that. Sometimes that takes some time. And then I work on my past. Because your past also has this way of controlling your reality. And I do my best to get that. You can think of sort of shoving things off the side of the ship before the ship goes down. And then I take a look at my prospects. And the prospects, those have got to go too, because you have to live without expectations. And then finally, the last thing is my paradigms. What are the things that I just assume are always true? And how can I rid myself of that? And if I've done all of that, I'm at this point where at least I think it's just awareness. There's nothing else there. It's just awareness. And I do this every morning because I have been taught that at some point or another, I will lose my pomp, I will lose my pretensions, I will lose my past, I will lose my prospects, and I will lose my paradigms. So will all of you. And I want to be well prepared for that moment. So I do this every morning, and I take myself through this process, ripping away the layers of reality to get to the basics. And I thought I was doing pretty well at that. And then Wednesday morning came along and proved that all of that practice at the moment when it counted didn't count for very much. And so here I am after that going, okay, that doesn't mean my practice is worthless. What it means is that the next time there's a moment like that, I can encounter it differently because I managed to make it through the last one. So that when reality comes and takes things away, and it will do that for me, and it will do that for all of you, as it rips things away, I am not lost in terror. Instead, hopefully, I can simply accept reality for what it is. Thank you.